Hello everyone and welcome to a special edition of Who Wore It Better. Now, usually on this segment I try and compare Raw and Smackdown based on the sum of their parts and figure out which show won for the week. But this week it was a special case. It was the Superstar Shakeup, which is kind of like a draft. Members of each roster switch places with one another to try and change things up on the shows. So it's tough to compare the shows like I normally would. It's because the rosters were in so much flux, and the whole hype around both shows was who's going to go where. Then it's really hard to review the shows like I normally do. So this week, instead of trying to break down just which show won on the whole, I'm going to be talking about which show won the Superstar Shakeup, which show got the better end of the deal, so to speak. I'll be breaking down individual roster moves, whether they were good, whether they were bad, and also be talking about some other noteworthy non-Shakeup related things that happened throughout both shows. So let's begin. The big Shakeup news this week is that both of the mid-card champions switched places. You have the Intercontinental Champion, Dean Ambrose, who, yes, is still a champion, thanks to all 8 million of you who corrected me in the comments section last week when I erroneously said that the Ambrose-Corbin street fight on SmackDown last week was a title match. Anyway, Ambrose is now on Raw. Kevin Owens, the US champion, is now on SmackDown. Ambrose going to Raw I think is a good move because I think on SmackDown he's really fought everyone there is to fight on the upper to mid-card scene at this time. Not much left for him to do, so him going to Raw I think is a good change of pace for him. Also, interesting footnote, you've got Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns all on the same show now, which makes it possible for the Shield to reunite. At this point, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Keeping with Raw at the moment, Bray Wyatt was a big name that moved to Raw as of Monday, which is questionable. On one hand, it's good to have him on Raw because I think his brand has been so messed up on SmackDown. It's so much up and down that I think him moving to Raw would be good for him, but at the same time, it's like I think we might get more of the same. At this point, it fragments so much stuff going on with him because now Eric Rowan's on an island all by himself on SmackDown. It really telegraphs the finish to his rematch with Randy Orton for the title later on because of the fact that the Universal Champion didn't go anywhere. If Brock Lesnar were moved to SmackDown, then you could say, okay, Bray Wyatt's going to win the title in the rematch and take it to Raw, but that's not going to happen now. So it just kind of gives away the finish of that, which is unfortunate. So Bray Wyatt, kind of a mixed bag in my opinion. The Miz and Maurice are now on Raw, which I think is great. I think it's a great move because he's done all he really can on SmackDown at this point. It was clear they weren't going to give him like a main event push. He did really all he could with the Intercontinental Championship, taking that to new heights in his feud with Dolph Ziggler last year. He had the feud with John Cena. He's still doing the Cena shtick, although now that they're going to be on separate brands, I don't know why he's still doing it, because unless you're going to fight John Cena, what's the point of still doing that whole gimmick? I think it's kind of like run its course. So now The Miz as himself, I think, will be a better thing. Hopefully they won't keep that thing going. Anyway, The Miz and Maurice going to Raw, I should say, is a good call. The Drifter Elias Sampson is now part of Raw. Technically not a trade. He was part of NXT before. This is a call-up, not a trade, but I just want to talk about him for a minute because there was some amazing subtle stuff they were doing with him on Raw. He walked through the crowd in the background of the Nia Jax Charlotte match. Like if you didn't know where to look, you would have missed him. And also he showed up for a brief time walking like across the stage during a match later on in the night. So, but that was a little more overt, but the stuff in the background was just really cool, really subtle, like late 90s teasing stuff that they pulled there. I thought it was really cool with Elias Sampson. Kurt Hawkins on the Red brand now, kind of a curious way to introduce him because we knew he was a jobber on SmackDown, but for him to continue his jobbing ways on Raw, being so quickly destroyed by the Big Show, not even a real match, the show just walks up, punches him, and that's it. It makes the people in charge of Raw kind of look dumb because like the whole point of these trades is you're bringing these people in because you think these are going to be members of a winning team, but to have Kurt Hawkins show up and just get flattened by the Big Show so quickly, it makes everyone look bad. Kalisto's moved to Raw now, which I think is the best, smartest decision in the world. I think he should have been part of Raw from the draft initially because of the whole cruiserweight element there. I don't know why they didn't put him there to begin with, but now he's there. I think he'll find more of a home with the cruiserweights than getting lost in the shuffle with Apollo Crews and Dolph Ziggler on SmackDown. Speaking of Apollo Crews, apparently he and Kalisto are part of some package deal because he also went to Raw. He was actually the first name announced online before Raw began on Monday to move to Raw. I think it'll be a good change of scenery for him. Heath Slater and Rhino got moved to Raw. I was a big fan of theirs during their whole Cinderella story when Heath Slater was the free agent last year when the draft began. He was fighting to get his job. They won the tag titles, and that was great. But after they lost the belts, they really just kind of like faded away, got moved to the background. SmackDown, lost in the shuffle, call it what you will. I think them moving to Raw, again, it's a good change of scenery for them. I don't see them winning the tag titles on Raw anytime soon, but it'll be good to have some fresh opponents for them. Moving on to the ladies, Alexa Bliss and Mickie James both moved to Raw. I have mixed feelings about it, especially with Bliss, because I feel she could have done a lot more on SmackDown. They did give a lot to her early on. I think there was still more for her to explore on the SmackDown side, but she did pretty much wrestle everyone there. So now I think it's going to be a good change of pace for her to have some fresh opponents. Really, the women's division on both shows benefited the most from this shakeup because they're pretty small and they fight each other every week. So having just 2 women per show switching brands, I think is going to be good in the long run for them. Finally, David Otunga moves from the SmackDown commentary desk to Raw. I feel Raw got the worst out of this one because for all his faults, Byron Saxton is still an infinitely better color commentator. Before I talk about the roster moves on SmackDown, I do want to talk about the more noteworthy things that happened on Raw. The matches and moments that didn't have anything to do with the Superstar shakeup stuff. First of all, the match between Nia Jax and Charlotte. On the one hand, this match made Nia look very good in terms of positioning. She was kicked out of everything Charlotte hit her with. She beats Charlotte pretty definitively, almost kind of a squash match with the Samoan drop. It really cements her status. Now with the hindsight, knowing that Charlotte was going to go to SmackDown the next night, really cements Nia as the #1 heel in the women's division on Raw. However, there was a lot of bad stuff with this match too. In particular, 2 scary spots that happened. First of all, Nia botching the shoulder breaker and dropping Charlotte on her head. That was terrifying to watch. Then later in the match, Charlotte hits the moonsault from the top turnbuckle to the outside, and Nia doesn't get in a position to catch her really. Basically, she gets kicked in the head and shoulder area by one of Charlotte's legs. Charlotte face plants on the floor. Again, pretty scary stuff. And so people are kind of speculating online, is Nia Jax a dangerous worker? That's the real talk of the week. And I don't really think so. I mean, the shoulder breaker botch, that was pretty sloppy. I'm going to knock some points from Nia for doing that. But the moonsault thing, I think that was just a matter of bad luck. I think that could happen to any pair of wrestlers where they don't get in position. I mean, you see the moonsault at the outside's been done tons of times, and you see tons of people, tons of good, reliable workers not quite being there to catch the person who's falling. And that, it sucks, but that's just the nature of wrestling, that kind of the misplaced position. That happens from time to time. So I'm not going to knock Nia for doing that. And honestly, I think for Charlotte, I think if you want to make that move special, maybe don't do it every week on Monday night, just save for pay-per-views. That's just my opinion. But anyway, I don't think, a couple of bad luck spots in one match does not a dangerous worker make, in my opinion, for Nia Jax. I think people are too quick to judge her on that. I mean, she is green. She is the greenest of the high-profile women on Raw and SmackDown at the moment, but I wouldn't, bury her as a dangerous worker just yet. Finn Balor taking on Jinder Mahal. Normally, I wouldn't talk about this match because this match is clearly designed just to get Finn Balor over and reassert himself on the Raw brand, but the reason I am talking about it is because that sick elbow to the side of the head by Jinder Mahal to Finn Balor that led to a concussion. I don't know if it was the impact from the elbow or Finn face planting after he got hit, but yeah, Finn Balor apparently suffered a concussion, the severity of which is unknown at this time. At the last time I went online to look at the news, bad timing and bad luck for Finn Balor. He's just having come off of, his shoulder surgery and everything. To get another injury so soon is very bad luck. And so hopefully he will recover and, no harm, no foul. Then there was a segment that everyone was talking about all week when Braun Strowman murdered Roman Reigns 3 times over. First, he interrupts the Michael Cole interview, just beats up Roman Reigns, throws him against the garage door through a table. He crushes his head with a crate. That was bad enough. Then Roman Reigns is on the stretcher. Braun Strowman grabs the stretcher, shoves the stretcher off a ledge, thanks to some creative photography. I don't think it was actually Roman Reigns who took that fall, thank God. And then Roman Reigns gets put in the ambulance. Braun goes, "I'm not finished yet," which got the biggest pop of the night, him coming out from the side. He beats up Roman Reigns and friggin' tilts the ambulance and flips it. I don't know, I was trying to look for strings or wires or levers or something. There's no way Braun Strowman did that by himself. I mean, oof, if he did, that's amazing. That's some scary strength. Even if he had some assistance, it still looks amazing. But it was a great, incredible sight to see Braun just totally flip the ambulance, throw Roman Reigns inside. There's a reason people are talking about it, because it was a fantastic segment. It's like every time these two meet one-on-one, I always wonder how they're going to top themselves, and they always manage to, because the week before Fastlane, when they had their match at Fastlane, they had the contract signing, and that was a crazy wild brawl. And well, they can't top that at Fastlane, and they did. They had a great match at Fastlane, in my opinion. Then you have this big fight here, this big backstage brawl where Roman Reigns gets destroyed. How are they going to top this? What's Roman Reigns going to possibly do to counteract what Braun Strowman did here? It's just, it makes you wonder. It makes you have to want to tune in and see what they're going to do, how they're going to treat Braun Strowman now, because For him beating up Roman Reigns, who everyone hates because he beat The Undertaker, does this make Braun Strowman a face now? I mean, I kind of doubt it, but I mean, they're going to have to try and find a way to spin that narrative. It's very intriguing stuff, in my opinion. All right, I've gushed enough about that segment on Raw. Let's talk about SmackDown and the Superstar shakeup therein. First of all, like I said at the top of the segment, the U.S. champion Kevin Owens is now a part of SmackDown, switching places with Dean Ambrose. He has a semi-clean shaven. He's not clean shaven, but he lost the bushy beard, and I don't know what to think about that. It makes him look a lot older, first of all, and there's a reason he's had a beard for so long. Like, he doesn't look good clean shaven. Doesn't look good without a beard. Kind of a mixed bag with Owens going to SmackDown, because like I mentioned with Ambrose going to Raw, it makes a lot of sense because Owens has really fought everyone there is to fight on his level on Raw. Not much left for him to do there, so him going to SmackDown makes all the sense in the world. But it also leaves a lot of stuff unresolved. I mean, we were kind of seeing that alliance between him and Samoa Joe, like the chosen ones of Triple H, and now that's kind of thrown to the wayside. Now Joe's kind of on his own on Raw, and Owens is broken off doing his thing on SmackDown. Is this going to be kind of like satellite members of Triple H's cronies and goons, or is this just kind of a thing where they kind of take a storyline and leave it unresolved? Sami Zayn's on SmackDown now, even though Kurt Angle specifically told him backstage on Raw on Monday that he was staying on the Red brand, so Angle's word means nothing here. Also, can they not keep Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens apart for more than a month? The New Day are coming to SmackDown soon. Kofi Kingston was written off of TV this past week to get ankle surgery. Meanwhile, Xavier and Big E lost the Revival for the second week in a row. Xavier taking a very ugly shatter machine. It was not pretty. That was their swan song on Raw. I think them going to SmackDown is a great move because they have done literally all they can do on Raw. They were the longest reigning Raw Tag Team Champions. They were just kind of floating in the ether for a while. I mean, they didn't have a match at WrestleMania, so it tells you how much like, well, we've done all we can with these guys. So them moving to SmackDown, I think is a great change of pace. Speaking of tag teams, the Shining Stars are now a part of SmackDown. They were Jobber Deluxe on Raw. I don't see much changing here on SmackDown, but I could be surprised. The vascular Jinder Mahal is now part of SmackDown. Of course, he's the one who concussed Finn Balor on Monday night. He's famous for doing that and getting beat up by Rob Gronkowski for the second time in 3 weeks. It's interesting to see him move to SmackDown just as he was finding his groove on Raw. Maybe he'll find a way to shine on SmackDown. Sin Cara moves from Raw to SmackDown. I don't know why the company insists on keeping he and Kalisto apart. Them being part of the Lucha Dragons as a tag team was the best thing to happen to both of them in a long time, and once they split up, things went tits up from there, so I don't really understand why they're keeping them apart. Rusev and Lana going to SmackDown soon. Rusev's been off TV for a while after shoulder surgery, so when he comes back, hopefully it'll be a nice fresh start for the two of them. It was kind of a lateral move in a way from Raw to SmackDown because Rusev wasn't doing much, but again, kind of the same thing with Owens and Zane. He's really done all he can in the mid-card on Raw, so him going to SmackDown will be a nice change of pace. They had a big segment on SmackDown where Shane McMahon has all the women on his roster out there, and he introduced the two new signees to the women's division. The first person he introduces is someone who's like the daughter of a Hall of Famer, a great athlete in her own right. Everyone thinks it's going to be Charlotte, but it's like Tamina Snuka comes out. Tamina comes out, and the crowd kind of deflates, and then Shane's like, actually, yeah, we have Charlotte too, and the crowd goes nuts for that. I think the way they introduced the two of them was very strange because on the one hand, I think it's a great move for both women, especially Charlotte because she's done all she can on Raw, moving to SmackDown, having a brand new opponent is going to be great for her. But at the same time, it's really weird. It kind of took the piss out of Tamina's introduction where it's like, here's this woman, Tamina. It's like, psych, here's the woman you actually wanted to see, Charlotte. I thought it was kind of weird. Then finally, as I mentioned earlier, Byron Saxton is now moving to the SmackDown commentary team, which is an improvement over David Otunga. But when the news first broke, I couldn't hear anything over the sound of JBL rubbing his hands together in glee. Now let's talk about the match that happened on SmackDown. First off, the brand's once-a-month showcasing of their tag division as the Usos defend the tag titles against American Alpha in a rematch. This was another fun, great match to watch. Both teams had a lot of fun spots. I loved the double suicide dive by the Usos, caught by American Alpha, double belly-to-belly suplex. That was a really cool counter. The match ends after some confusion, a blind tag by the Usos, super kick, body splash, the Usos retain. It was kind of a short match, but I think it was really enjoyable. Then the main event was a triple threat match to determine the number one contender for the U.S. Championship, whether it be Kevin Owens or Chris Jericho. It was Baron Corbin, AJ Styles, and the debuting to SmackDown, Sami Zayn. First of all, I love the interactions between Styles and Zayn, both in the beginning of the match and near the end. I love their chemistry right away. I want to see more of them just one-on-one. That was great stuff. Baron Corbin looking strong as he does. He's been in a few of these triple threat scenarios where it's like the story is make Corbin look strong, make Corbin look strong, and that's exactly what they did. It did feel very similar to like the title match they had a couple of months ago where it was Corbin and Styles, and I believe Dolph Ziggler was the third man. Very similar story being told here. They had a pretty entertaining sequence near the end of the match where Corbin was running from corner to corner. Sammy gets out of the way. AJ kicks Sammy. Sammy kicks Corbin. Sammy kicks AJ. AJ Paley kicks Sami Zayn. That was just a pretty fun sequence. The match ends when AJ hits the phenomenal forearm on Sami Zayn to win the match and is the new #1 contender to the US Championship. I thought it was a very entertaining main event. So like I said at the top of the video, this week on Who Wore It Better, I'm not going to be allocating like which show won for the week. I'm not going to be giving out points. I'm just going to be trying and picking which show, in my opinion, won the Superstar Shakeup. And honestly, just stepping back and looking at the names on paper, it's kind of hard to say. I think they did their best to try and make the trades as even as possible for both shows. Both shows got like the top mid-card champion, Owens and Ambrose. They switched places with them. Both shows got an equal number of mid to upper card guys and gals who will greatly benefit from this change of scenery. Everyone else involved across both shows, they're just mid to lower card, enhancement talent, jobber types who are getting moved around, I feel, to help build new people up. Maybe something will happen where those lower card people will get chances to shine on their respective brands, but right now, just on paper, that's kind of how I see it. You feel like Raw got the better deal with the people they got from SmackDown because the people on SmackDown they moved, it's like bigger fishes in a smaller pond. A lot of those guys were given a lot more time to build and be seen as stars on SmackDown, so now they have higher value when they go to Raw. Whereas the people who moved from Raw to SmackDown, a lot of their value went lower because it's such a big show, such a bloated roster, people get lost in the shuffle. So I think there's the perception a lot of people have is, oh, SmackDown got totally screwed in the Superstar Shakeup, and I don't really agree with that. Like I said, I think it was very even. That being said, I do think more of the people who move to SmackDown will do better for themselves in the long run than the people who move to Raw, mostly because historically speaking, the last several months, SmackDown has been the better written show, unless you're a tag team. So again, who won the Superstar Shakeup? Which show got the better end of the deal? I think Raw got the better end of the deal in my opinion, but like by this much, not by a ton. People online are saying, oh, SmackDown got slaughtered in the Shakeup, they lost everyone, it's like, I think that they got about as well as they gave. I think everything balances out in the end. Like I said, the star power of the people they brought from SmackDown feels more enhanced because they did better with what they had on SmackDown, and those people got a better time to shine. So now they're, like I said, the bigger fish in the small pond. So Raw wins, but by such a minute scale, it's like you could barely say it's a clear-cut win. But let me know what you thought about the Superstar Shakeup and which brand, in your opinion, won in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Wregret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.